The conference room smelled like fresh coffee and new carpet. It was one of those sterile spaces companies use when they want conversations to feel casual but controlled. The man across from me, Daniel Granger, VP of Operations, cleared his throat, glanced at the folder in front of him, then said the words he'd probably rehearsed 3 times that morning. "We're shifting priorities," he said, "looking at how to better align our resources." I already knew. When you've spent over a decade with a company, you can feel when the wind changes. It starts subtly: fewer emails, skipped meetings, people walking past your door a little too quickly. "I understand," I said. Before he could finish, he looked relieved. "My name is Mason Toll. For 13 years, I built and ran the central logistics arm of a mid-sized manufacturing firm called Elbridge Supply. When I joined, we were operating out of a shared warehouse and struggling to deliver on time. By the time I was let go, we had tripled our client base, expanded to 2 additional distribution centers, and maintained a 98.7% on-time delivery rate. I didn't do it with strategy decks or consultants. I did it by learning the roots, the people, the problems no one else wanted to see. I kept a pair of steel-toe boots in my trunk and made it a habit to visit the floor myself, not because I had to, but because that's where things actually happened. They didn't fire me because I failed. They fired me because I no longer fit the version of the company that existed in someone's spreadsheet. I walked out of that meeting with a severance folder and a practiced smile. No drama, no scene. My assistant tried to make eye contact as I passed by, but I just nodded politely and kept walking. Back in my office, I packed my things. A framed photo of my wife and son, a plaque from the State Logistics Association, a chipped coffee mug from our first warehouse. I placed them all gently into a small box. You learn not to collect too much over the years. Anything that matters, you keep elsewhere. As I was finishing, Elena from Client Services knocked on the door. She looked like she'd been crying. "They didn't tell anyone," she said. "We found out through the system alert. Your email's already been deactivated." "It's okay," I replied. "It's not." I didn't know what to say, so I patted her shoulder and smiled. After a moment, she stepped back and left. The silence returned. That's the part they don't tell you about being let go, how quiet it gets. The constant noise, the emails, the calls, the low hum of a team needing things from you. It stops all at once, like someone pulling a plug. Back home, my wife Nora met me at the door with raised eyebrows. "Early lunch, permanent lunch," I said. She didn't say anything right away, just motioned me inside and poured a cup of tea. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one where we used to review Dylan's school projects and vacation plans. Now it felt like the edge of a cliff. "Are you angry?" she asked. "No." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." And I was. I wasn't angry. What I felt was unmoored, like something important had slipped loose, and I hadn't even noticed. The next morning, I opened the drawer where I kept my private client files, not company files, but notes I'd written over the years. Details that didn't fit into CRM systems, birthdays, hobbies, preferred shipping windows, who hated voicemail, who preferred early morning check-ins over email. These weren't just names on a ledger. They were relationships. Some of them spanned a decade. At 9:42 a.m., my phone rang. It was Marion from Westbridge Automotive, one of our longest clients. I'd helped them transition to just-in-time deliveries 5 years ago. We'd worked through holiday shortages, dock strikes, and vendor bankruptcies together. "Mason," she said, "we just heard." "Is it true?" "It is." A pause. "Then we were told it was a strategic restructuring." "I suppose they didn't define what that means. They rarely do." Another pause. "Look, we've got a quarterly contract renewal coming up," she continued. "And I'll be honest, we stayed with Elbridge longer than we should have because you made things work. If you're not there anymore, I don't know if that makes sense for us." I didn't say anything. I wasn't sure what I was allowed to say. I hadn't signed a non-solicitation clause. I remembered that much. The old leadership hadn't believed in those. Still, I didn't want to jump the line. "I'm not sure what's next," I said honestly. "Let me know when you do." That same afternoon, I got texts from 3 different client contacts. All had the same tone: surprise, concern, and an odd sense of disorientation. They hadn't heard from anyone at Elbridge yet. No transition plan, no point of contact, just silence. I didn't badmouth anyone, I just answered what I could, told the truth. By evening, I was sitting in front of a blank spreadsheet, mapping possibilities. Not a list of grievances, a list of beginnings. Asterisk. The spreadsheet didn't look like much, just a few names, numbers, and notes about old conversations. But each cell held something deeper, a memory, a connection, a moment when someone had trusted me to deliver when no one else would. Some of these clients had once been on the edge of cutting ties with Elbridge backlogs, miscommunications, late shipments, all fixable things, but only if someone actually listened. That had always been my role, not just to manage logistics, but to pay attention, to care in ways that couldn't be measured in quarterly reports. Now those clients were calling me directly. By the end of that week I'd spoken with 7 of them. The conversations followed a rhythm: confusion, frustration, and finally, the same question. What are you going to do next? I didn't have a rehearsed answer. I just told them the truth, that I was weighing my options, that I wasn't sure if I'd take another executive role or start something of my own. I said I needed a little time, and in return, they each said the same thing. Let us know when you decide. We'll be here. Meanwhile, I heard nothing from ELBRIDGE. No formal handoff emails, no team introductions, not even a LinkedIn update. That it was as if the company wanted to pretend the change had never happened, that I had simply evaporated. I might have let it go at that. But then a former colleague, Nathan from purchasing, forwarded me an internal slide deck. No subject line, no message, just the file and a single word in the email body. Thought you should see this. It was a presentation from the new strategy team, date stamped 10 days before my termination. The plan was clear: a full departmental restructure, starting with leadership cuts. My name was listed under legacy roles. Eliminate. The justification read: overdependence on personality-based relationships. Need to shift to scalable, system-dependent model. There, it was in black and white. I hadn't been let go because I was underperforming. I'd been cut because I didn't fit into someone's algorithm. Because the way I worked wasn't easily replicated. They weren't trying to improve logistics. They were trying to erase the human parts of it. Even more troubling was the next slide. A roadmap for raising contract rates by 12 to 15% over the next renewal cycle. It explicitly noted that client retention risk should be absorbed through pricing model optimization. In other words, lose a few accounts, make more from the ones who stay. On paper, it probably looked brilliant. On the ground, I knew it would unravel fast. That night I sat on the back porch with Nora. The sun was setting. The air was cool. My phone buzzed on the table next to us. Another message from someone at Elbridge. I ignored it. They're going to lose more than they think, I said quietly. She didn't answer right away, just sipped her tea, then said, "You built something with trust. You didn't hide behind a title." "It's not just about me," I said. "It's about the others. The team, the people who made it work." "Do you know where they stand?" "Not yet. Maybe you should find out." The next morning, I called Samuel Tran, my former fleet coordinator. He'd been with Elbridge 8 years, quiet guy, but sharp. Always knew the pulse of the drivers better than anyone else. He picked up on the first ring. "Mason, I heard you lost your job." "I did. So did I," he said. "My stomach dropped when 3 days after you left. They told me my role was redundant, said they were consolidating routing into an automated system. I didn't know what to say." "You were the glue," Samuel continued. "Once they pulled you out, it all started to slide." He wasn't bitter, just calm, like a man who'd already started processing what came next. "I've had a few calls from clients," I said. "They single quotes, asking questions, wondering where to go. Then maybe you should give them an answer." That afternoon, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. "Mr. Toll, this is Stephen Morrow, CEO at Marlowe Transport Solutions. We met briefly at the regional summit 2 years ago." I remembered him, polished, confident, sharp suit, even on a warehouse tour. He had asked a lot of questions. Real questions, not just surface ones. "I've been hearing things," he continued, "about Elbridge, about the restructuring." I stayed quiet. "You've got a reputation, Mason. People respect you. If you're considering next steps, I'd like to discuss a proposal." "I'm listening. What if we built something from scratch?" he said. "Or close to it. I've got the capital. You've got the clients, the talent, the trust. I want to offer you a partner track position, full control over operations. Your pick of the team, you set the culture." I didn't answer right away. "I know it's a lot," he said, sensing my hesitation, "but I've watched this industry for 20 years. Real relationships are rare. If you want to build, I want to back you." After we hung up, I didn't feel excited, not yet, but something shifted. A small, steady warmth in my chest. The kind that meant something important was starting to stir that evening. I called 2 more former team members, Alina from client services and Paul from routing. They were already packing up their desks. They're letting us go in phases, Alina said. New leadership says it's about streamlining, but it feels more like erasure. I told them about Marlowe, about the idea of building something better, something real. They both said the same thing. Asterisk, if you're in, we're in. Asterisk, by the end of the week, I had 5 people confirmed, all from my old team, all let go or quietly pushed out. And a 6th, Marion, from Westbridge Automotive, emailed to ask if I'd be free for lunch the following week. Asterisk, just to catch up, she said. But I knew what that really meant. Asterisk, Marlowe. Transport didn't waste time. 2 days after our call, Stephen Morrow sent over a draft proposal, Executive Vice President title Partner Track Agreement, full operational authority, and a $250,000 seed budget for team development. Attached was a simple line, asterisk, asterisk, we don't need another logistics company, we need one people trust. Asterisk, asterisk, I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I forwarded the document to Nora. She replied a few minutes later, asterisk, asterisk, it's not flashy. That's why it feels right. Asterisk, asterisk, still, I wasn't interested in revenge. I wasn't trying to rush back into anything just to prove a point. If I was going to take this leap, it had to be for something better, and for the right reasons. So I called Stephen back and said the only words that made sense. I'll do it, but I bring my team, not resumes, real people I've worked with. 5 of them, at least, and I need official offers for all of them in writing before I say anything public. He agreed without hesitation. That evening I made 5 phone calls. By morning, I had 5 yeses. The next few days passed in a strange rhythm. Coffee shop meetings, quiet dinners with old team members, late-night calls with Stephen and his finance lead. I asked questions I'd never asked before about ownership, transparency, and how decisions were made. I wasn't just signing on to another job. I was shaping the foundation of something I could believe in. Meanwhile, the calls from Elbridge started trickling in. At first they were indirect. A message from HR asking if I'd be willing to consult on transition planning. A voicemail from a mid-level exec I barely knew, saying we'd love your input as we reshape our service model. I ignored them. Then, I received a message from someone I hadn't expected, Robert Langston, Chief Client Officer. Mason, the message began. I know things ended poorly, but we've hit some turbulence. Would you consider coming in for a conversation? I didn't reply. Not out of pettiness, I just didn't see what conversation was left to have. They hadn't called when my team was being dismantled. They hadn't blinked when long-time clients were left in the dark. And they certainly hadn't offered anything when they stripped away everything we'd built. Now, with the cracks beginning to show, they were looking backward, but I was already walking forward. A week later, I met Marion from Westbridge Automotive at a small cafe tucked into the edge of a business park. She waved me over with the same energy she always had, direct, perceptive, never wasting time. We ordered lunch, but she didn't touch her sandwich. Mason, she said, folding her napkin with quiet precision, we've reviewed your former company's recent transition plan. I raised an eyebrow. They increased our rates by 14%, cited market volatility and supply chain costs. But we both know what that really means. She paused, then continued, what we don't know is where you're landing, and if there's a future where our account follows you. I stayed quiet for a moment, then spoke carefully. I'm not poaching, I said. I've signed nothing that prevents clients from making their own choices, but I haven't reached out to anyone directly. Good, she replied, because I'm reaching out to you, hypothetically. If you were in a new role at a new firm, how soon could you take over our logistics coordination? I smiled for the first time in days. 2 weeks, I said. She smiled back. Hypothetically, of course. That evening, the storm finally broke. Nathan, the colleague who had sent me the original restructuring deck, texted me one line, asterisk, asterisk, they know, asterisk, asterisk. Minutes later, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I answered. Mason, came the voice, clipped and tight. It was Robert Langston. We need to talk now. I'm a bit tied up, I said calmly. We're losing clients, he said, skipping any pretense. Westbridge, Hudson Tech. Several others are. Hesitating, I said nothing. I don't know what you're doing or where you're going, he continued, but it's clear you're involved in something. I haven't violated any agreements, I replied. That's not the point, he snapped. You're undermining what we're trying to build. No, I said softly. You're trying to erase what we already built, and that's what's collapsing. Silence. You walked me out without a single question, I continued. No handoff, no continuity. And now you want me to salvage what's left. We're willing to offer a new position, senior, full authority over client strategy, higher comp than before. I looked out the window. The sky was turning that early evening indigo. A single bird was perched on the fence, watching, waiting. Not about the title, I said, or the money. You made that clear when you replaced people with formulas. He sighed. A long, heavy one. Let us know if you change your mind. I won't. The next day, the team met in a small co-working space downtown, nothing fancy. Just a few desks and some natural light. Stephen walked us through Marlowe's vision. Small-scale, high-trust logistics with a human-first model. No automation. Gimmicks, no dashboards full of buzzwords. Just old-fashioned dependability with modern systems built for clarity, not control. Keith, our tech coordinator, laid out the new routing dashboard design. Alina shared updates from former clients, already reaching out with exploratory questions. Paul had already mapped 24 potential carrier partnerships. Using contacts he'd built over 8 years at Elbridge, we weren't building a startup, we were building a restoration, a return to something real, something that worked. That afternoon, I received a certified letter from Elbridge's legal team. The language was aggressive. Accusations of interference, claims of breach, implied litigation if I didn't cease and desist all communications with current or former Elbridge clients. I forwarded it to a legal contact, then went back to work. 2 hours later, my lawyer called. You're clean, she said. There, case is smoke. You signed no non-solicit, and the standard non-compete expired 6 months ago. They're just trying to slow me down. She laughed. If that's their strategy, they're already behind. The first official client contract landed on my desk at 9:06 a.m. Tuesday morning. Marlowe Transport was now the exclusive logistics provider for Westbridge Automotive. It wasn't just a contract, it was a quiet revolution. A small but symbolic transfer of trust, not because we had the cheapest rates or the most high-tech system, but because we had something Elbridge had stopped valuing: real relationships. By noon, we had 3 more incoming inquiries, not press releases, not public declarations, just quiet messages from procurement officers, vendor managers, and long-time contacts. Asterisk, I heard you're back in the game. Asterisk, asterisk, can we talk about options? Asterisk, asterisk, we're re-evaluating our current provider. Asterisk, nobody said Elbridge's name out loud. They didn't need to. Everyone in the industry could feel the shift. That same afternoon, I received another unexpected, Messrs. AGEA formal email. Subject line, asterisk, board request. Private discussion, asterisk. It came from Judith Barnes, chair of the Elbridge board of directors. Polite, corporate, almost sterile in tone. Asterisk, asterisk. We understand recent changes may not have been managed optimally. The board would value a conversation about strategic alignment. Please advise your availability. I let it sit for 2 days. Then, finally, I replied, happy to speak, but only if we're speaking honestly. Asterisk, asterisk. We met in a small private lounge at the downtown business center. Judith arrived with 2 other board members in tow, both senior, both visibly nervous. I shook their hands and sat down across from them. They didn't waste time. We've seen the numbers, Judith began. Since your departure, 5 of our largest accounts have delayed renewals or signaled intent to move. Those are their decisions, I said. Not mine. We know, she replied. We also know the restructure failed to consider the depth of your client relationships. I didn't nod, I didn't smile, I just listened. The board has made a determination, she continued. Mr. Langston has been asked to step down. We're looking to reset our operational leadership. Silence. Then, the offer. Asterisk, asterisk, we'd like you to return. As Chief Operating Officer, full discretion over client services and logistics. Competitive equity package. We'll issue a public apology and position this as a realignment, not a reversal. Asterisk, asterisk, I looked down at the glass of water in front of me, clear still, cold. Then, I looked back at them. I'm flattered, I said, but I've already begun building something better. There's room for partnership, one of the other board members added quickly. Perhaps an acquisition, a merger of operations. Forgive me, I said, but what exactly would I be acquiring? A list of accounts that don't trust you? A team that's been gutted? Or the same vision that got you here in the first place? Judith stayed quiet. Then I leaned forward, calm and measured. I don't want a seat back at your table. I'm building a new one, and I've already invited the people who matter. They didn't argue, they knew. The meeting ended politely, without incident. But as I left the building, I realized something that surprised me. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't trying to win. I wasn't trying to prove anything. I was simply done. That evening, our full Marlowe team met in the rented space. We were quickly outgrowing. Stephen stood up with a small smile. "I just got word," he said. "2 more former Elbridge clients have signed letters of intent. That makes 6. With projections, we're 3 months ahead of revenue targets." The room stayed quiet, not with tension, but with something softer. Fulfillment, quiet pride. Keith pulled out sketches for a new internal system we'd been designing. Alina updated us on hiring plans. Samuel had already streamlined the dispatch structure for our 2 largest carrier zones. And then there was Nora standing at the back with coffee, smiling. I met her eyes. She mouthed a single word. Now. We moved fast. Within 3 weeks, Marlowe secured permanent office space. Within 4, we onboarded 9 new team members, many from Elbridge, others from firms that had never appreciated their talents. The board at Elbridge announced strategic setbacks in their quarterly filing. They didn't name names, they didn't have to. The industry knew. Then came the letter. Hand-delivered. A thick envelope, embossed. It wasn't from ELBRIDGE. It was from a private equity firm, Hartwell and Dawson. The letter outlined interest in acquiring a rising logistics provider with strong industry relationships, leadership stability, and rapid client growth. There was no dollar amount attached. Just a phrase, "We'd like to start a conversation." I smiled and handed it to Stephen. "You ready for this?" I asked. He didn't even blink. "Only if you were." Later that week, I had lunch with Marian again. She handed me a small wooden box. Inside was a polished metal token engraved with the Westbridge logo and the words for trust, not terms. Just a reminder, she said, that relationships still matter. I thanked her and slipped it into my jacket pocket. Back at the office, I placed it beside my old service plaque from Elbridge, the one they'd never officially revoked, 2 pieces of metal. Only one still meant something. 6 months after my full launch, I received an email from a former colleague I hadn't heard from in nearly a year. Subject line, "Thought you'd like to see this." It was a link to a financial brief, nothing flashy. Just a quiet update tucked into the 3rd section of a quarterly industry digest. Elbridge, supply announces sale of remaining divisions. It wasn't framed as a collapse, it never is. The language was tidy. Strategic repositioning, asset realignment, value recovery through divestiture. But I knew what it meant. ELBRIDGE, the company I'd spent over a decade building, no longer existed in any recognizable form. Its name would live on only in contract clauses and outdated letterheads. I read the piece twice. Not with triumph, not even with sadness. Just clarity. The same morning, we finalized our Q2 numbers at Marlowe. Client retention, 8% new business pipeline, stronger than projected. Employee turnover, 0. We didn't talk about Elbridge anymore. There was no need to. Our success wasn't built on their failure. It was built on something simpler: showing up, following through, giving a damn when others didn't. Keith had rolled out the final version of our custom logistics dashboard. Not the kind that impresses venture capitalists with sleek animations, but the kind that helps someone on the warehouse floor understand exactly what's happening. In plain language, Alina had created a client check-in system that flagged red flags long before they became problems. Samuel had automated our fleet alerts without eliminating a single dispatch role. We used tools, but never let the tools replace people. At the center of it all was trust, not policy, not platform. People. One day, while reorganizing my shelves, I found an old notebook, the one I used back when I started at Elbridge. Before the titles, before the travel, before the silence, inside, I had scribbled a line I'd forgotten. Don't try to be essential, try to be missed. I closed the notebook and laughed softly to myself. Back then, I hadn't understood what I meant. Now I did. That fall, we opened a second operations hub. Clients we hadn't even approached were reaching out. Referrals, whispers, quiet inquiries from industry folks tired of being treated like numbers. One by one, they found their way to us, not because we promised perfection, but because we listened. About a year after Elbridge's collapse, I got a phone call from someone I hadn't expected. It was Robert Langston. His voice was different now, slower, stripped of the sharpness it used to carry. No, you probably don't want to hear from me, he said, but I wanted to apologize. I didn't say anything. We lost more than we realized, he continued. And we did it fast. Too fast. I thought I was implementing structure. I didn't realize I was cutting roots. He paused. I let the silence stretch. Anyway, he said quietly, I just thought you deserved that. I told him thank you, that I appreciated the call. Then we hung up. I didn't feel better or worse after it, just more sure of the path I was on. One Friday afternoon, we gathered the whole Marlowe team for a company-wide lunch, not a catered gala or some press-worthy summit, just folding tables, sandwiches, and familiar faces. Stephen stood up and gave a short, easy speech. No jargon, no forced inspiration. We didn't set out to be a disruption, he said. We just wanted to do things right. Turns out, that's rare enough to matter. People laughed, people clapped. Then everyone just kept eating. Later that afternoon, I walked through the office checking in, trading stories, watching the quiet rhythm of a place where people felt trusted. When I got home, Nora had left a note on the kitchen counter, ***, dinners on the porch. Thought you might want to end the week under the sky. ***. I sat out there for a long time, watching the light fade, letting the silence be something soft again, not threatening. The old me, the one who stayed late to save accounts that no one noticed, wouldn't have known what to do with a moment like this. The new me did. Weeks later, I ran into one of the old Elbridge board members at an industry event. He shook my hand a little too tightly and said all the usual things about market volatility, learning lessons, the future of logistics. Then he asked the one question he couldn't hide. Would you ever consider coming back? I smiled. I already did, I said, just not to the place you thought. Our client list kept growing, but our mission never changed. We didn't chase headlines, we didn't expand faster than we could handle, we didn't call what we were doing a revolution, but something quiet happened anyway. People noticed. One day Dylan called from Seattle. My son, now deep into his architecture career, excited about a new community project he was leading. How's the company, Dad? I smiled into the phone. Good, I said. Really good. Still building. Always, I replied. He paused for a moment, then added, Mom told me everything that happened last year. Proud of how you handled it. Thanks. You didn't get revenge. You just outgrew them. That stuck with me. Outgrowing isn't loud. It's not a headline. It's just one step, then another, then a life you didn't have to fight for because you built it. Sometimes I still drive past the old Elbridge warehouse. The building is there, but the name is gone. The parking lot is half full, and there's a for lease sign in the window. Don't stop. I don't look too long. I just pass by. Windows down, radio low, knowing I'm not what I left behind. And what came next?